Prologue. R.L. Steins' Red Rain, a novel. By morning, the hurricane had passed, but not before destroying every home, every building, every life on the island. Leah lowered her hand from her eyes and waited for them to adjust to the yellow-gray glare. The light reminded her of her sick room, a hospital room, that chilling light that carries no warmth at all. No clouds in the sky, but the sun was hidden, lost behind the swirling dust and mist and chunks of dirt that clogged the air. The light feels dirty. Now, two dogs began to wail, not in pain, howling a mournful song, sharing the horror of what they saw. Leah took one step, then another, concentrating on keeping her balance. Stay on solid ground. Don't stumble and fall off the edge of the earth into ragged piles of death. Keep moving and you won't be buried here. Leah's thoughts were in a jumble. No way to straighten them out, not with the dogs howling and the children crying and the corpses all witnesses. All of them, lying so still and watching the living in silent accusation. Her sandals sank into a deep mud puddle of cold water. She kept walking. Ahead of her, she could hear the rush and roar of waves. She was walking to the beach without realizing it. The winds and thundering rains had burrowed deep trenches in the sand. Leah stumbled and slogged through them, not seeing them, paying no attention to the mud and wet sand that invaded the bottoms of her jeans and clung like wet plaster to her legs. The sweaty mist carried by the wind off the ragging waves and didn't revive her. It seemed to blind her even more, as if she were stepping into a whirling, warm cloud, swallowed by it, vanishing. The roar drowned out the howls of the dogs, drowned out everything, even its own sound, a kind of noisy, hollow silence Leah never knew existed. The beach was soaked and soft as quicksand, she thought, and her sandals sank deep into the muck. She pictured herself sinking down, down, until she disappeared forever into a dark, quiet world. In the water, a canoe bobbed crazily upside down, something pale and flimsy tossed on the waves. Was it a sail? A bedsheet? Something crunched beneath Leah's sandal. She stopped with a gasp and pictured a human hand. Oh no. She lowered her eyes to the sand. Tentacles, a pile of wriggling creatures. She jumped back, struggled to keep her balance. No, they weren't moving. Salt air of the ocean made her eyes water. When she could finally focus, she recognized them. Starfish, dozens of them, stiff and already dry. A pile of 100 dead starfish, trailed by hundreds more, a long line all down the shore. They must have been washed up by the sea, by the storm. Leah bent to examine them. She had never seen so many starfish, never imagined so many would travel together to their deaths. She picked up one, prickly, nearly as hard as a seashell. She turned it over in her hand, the arms so stiff, as if they had never been alive. She dropped it into the pile. This has to be a symbol of bad luck. But how can luck get any worse? She is still leaning down, her eyes trailing along the line of starfish corpses, when she felt the first warm drop on the back of her neck. She brushed it away with the palm of her hand and stirred up. A high wave crashed onto the beach, more violent than the others, sending up a spray of white foam before retreating. Leah felt another warm drop, this time on her forehead. She took a step back from the ocean. She was squishing on the mucky sand. A soft patter made her gaze around. It had started to rain. She felt the warm taps on her top of her head, another on her forehead. She raised a palm and felt the warm raindrops on her skin. Gazing up, she saw only white glare, no rain clouds, but the raindrops made a pit-pit-pit sound on the sand all around her, and the shoulders of her sweater were already wet, and her hair. She uttered a soft cry and squinted into the falling rain. Something strange, something not right, like dead starfish all gathered in a line on the shore. Something wrong with this ring. The brightness of the sky and the darkness of the raindrops. Very wrong. Leah began to shiver. So unnatural. The darkness of the raindrops. As the storm grew stronger, it became easier to see that the raindrops were red. A shimmering, deep scarlet. "Holy shit," she murmured. It's raining blood." She raised both palms and watched the raindrops bounce onto her skin. Fascinated and horrified, she didn't move. Stared at her hands as the red raindrops trickled down her palm. She lifted her eyes as the raindrops fell around her. Red, as if the blood of all who had died here last night was raining down on her. The blood of all the victims pouring doom over the island. A final, terrifying, drenching goodbye. It soaked her hair and poured down her face. Blood red raindrops pattering down from the cloudless sky. A blood rain. Where had she heard that phrase before? Yes, she had read about a blood rain in South India several years ago. For real. The sky had opened up and red rain poured down on a village. The people were terrified. Leah remembered. They were frightened that the red rain was an onset of the world's end. Now that the sheets of rain fell, driven by the gusting winds of the ocean, like the red curtains, blowing and parting and closing again. Yes, red curtains of rain all around her. So wrong, so unnatural and wrong. And she was billowing blood curtains appeared to be apart. Two boys came stepping out. Two blonde-haired boys with bright blue eyes, walking solemnly side by side. Identical blonde boys, wavy hair brushed straight back off their broad, gleaming foreheads, bare-chested and barefoot, wearing only ragged, torn, white shorts stained with red raindrops. Their faces glowed pink, not a healthy pink, but a reflection of the rain that was falling around them. They gazed straight ahead of Leah, unblinking, faces dawn. Their expression stern, wooden, unreadable. Angels, she thought, unable to move, and forced to stare back at them. Like blonde angels. Two angels floating out of the curtain of blood and horror. How strange to see those two rays of light appear from all this darkness. Strange, even for this island of mystery. Pale chests and arms white as an angel feathers. Hands tucked into pockets of their stained shorts. Glowing figures. They moved in unison, walking together lightly over the soaked sand, blue eyes locked on Leah, closer. Until Leah was forced to cut the spell. She blinked a few times, then squinting harder at them, she called out, shouting over the roar of the dark rain, "Can I help you?" And that was the prologue of this chapter. I hope you have a wonderful time. I will read the second chapter maybe today. Well, that wasn't the second chapter. It was the first prologue. The last prologue. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye!